Welcome to the Ride of Your Life podcast. Featuring Vanda from V Pro Performance. Hi guys, and we are here for the 10th episode of Ride of Your Life. I can't believe we are on episode 10, and I have someone really special here today, Vanda. She has a company called V Pro Performance, and she does a lot of physio and trackside bits and bobs. And having a conversation with her, I thought she'd be really amazing to have on. It's not about followers, it's not about like all the sparkly bits, it's about authenticity in the business. And you know what, I couldn't think of anyone better, and after pulling lots of teeth we managed to get her on. So Vanda, I'm so grateful to have you on our podcast.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I can't tell you how terrified I am, but thank you for making me feel so welcome. It's brilliant.
What, after the phone call we had, I was like, we need to have her on, we really need to have her on, because that is something I really want to promote, is people that, you know, work in different areas of the business. It's not always about your following. It's not always about your the bells and whistles that come with it. It's about the things that you do that make an impact in the business. So I would love you to start by telling us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I'm a sports therapist, and I treat the general public, but I have an arm of the business that's been set up a bit reactively, which is the V Pro Performance side, and that specialises in the treatment of musculoskeletal injuries with motorcycle riders and racers. So essentially that just means that I offer normal therapy and normal injury treatment and prevention and rehabilitation services, but I also have, and I feel very passionately about this most of all, a side of the business that offers support. And what I'm learning more and more, even now, having been in the motorcycle industry for quite a long time now, but even now, is that there's so many people who are coming a cropper, because it's going to happen, we're in bikes, you're going to come a cropper at some point, who are really unsure about what to do. Once they have a crash, you're hurt, and you're kind of, for so many people, at the mercy of the NHS, which goes so far and then leaves people a little bit high
Alone
and dry. And it's at that point that people are nervous or unsure or unclear about what their options are. So I have a service where I offer crash support, and that's an entirely free service. If you fall off your motorbike, if you get hurt, you can ring me. You can book an appointment. And
that's kind of how we connected as well.
And I'll help you. And I might not be the right person, but I've been a therapist now for 16 years, so I'm pretty well connected, and I know where to go, and I know where to look, and I know what questions to ask to find the right person.
You said you've been working quite a lot with quite big businesses as well in motorcycling. So, like, what kind of companies, what kind of things have you done? So you mentioned Kawasaki. You've worked with quite a few brands.
Yeah, that's under a slightly different hat.
Right.
So
okay.
Outside of that, my partner and I work for a company called Focused Events, and we run their UK track days. So we run a number of Donington based at the moment track days for them, and we also are involved in a lot of the manufacturer events. So for example, we provide administration, and Dale does a lot of the lead guide riding and support for Kawasaki, BMW, Yamaha.
Wow, okay. So how did you get yourself so immersed? So what was the kind of route that got you into literally a life of bikes, basically? Because it's quite an interesting route that you've got the wellness side of things, the physio side of things, and then you've also got the events, the track days and all of that. And to find someone so immersed in so many different branches, that's quite unusual.
100%, and I would say that it is quite unusual, and it gives me a massive exposure to so many different things, like the difference. There's just so much that I've seen now, especially in the last 4 years, having been involved with the events-based stuff, the manufacturer-based stuff, and the track days. That's a completely different side of the coin to being a track day rider.
Yeah.
So there is that side of stuff, and that exposure to what the industry is like has been absolutely phenomenal and a real eye-opener and a huge learning curve. There's been my own learning curve as a rider as well, which has been quite interesting, I suppose, and it's been quite a big trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously there is the V-Pro performance side of things, which is sort of tied in a little bit with the learning riding type stuff. So, I mean, I passed my test in 2006, so I did quite a lot that first year, you know, but can I swear?
Yes, of course.
I'm going to throw it out there, right? I was a dick. I think I've already referred to myself as a dick. So going back, you know, however many years ago now, I had a chip on my shoulder, you know, and I was an absolute liability. I was that person that thought, well, I'm a girl and I'm short. I want to show the whole world how capable I am. And I just had an ego. And, you know, I've made so many mistakes. And I feel so ashamed of that now. I'm going to be honest. Like, I look back on it and I'm really ashamed of how I've behaved in the past and the arrogance with which I conducted myself back then. And I have to just meet it, you know, mentally.
Yeah.
I have to just meet that head on and go, well, deal with that. Like, you know, pull your big pants up and just crack on, because you can't change it now.
It's so strange you saying that, because I mean, having met you, I was like, she is like the sweetest, most conserved woman I've ever come across, because you were so lovely, but you're like, no, I don't want to come on the podcast. Absolutely not. And I was like, no, but we have to have you on, because, you know, I'm talking about bikers, I'm talking about the industry. And I mean, everybody that we've had on has had such great experiences in bikes and cars, but it's been nothing compared to what you do. So that's what was like, wow, okay, there's a whole different area here that people haven't thought of, people haven't heard of, people might need to tap into, because like you say, all of us come off somewhere along the line. But it's just getting my head around the fact that, so you were this in your own words, egotistical woman who was just like, I'm a rider, I'm this and this, but then you've gone in such a loving way into the physio side of things, and now you're a woman that is the backbone of a lot of other things. So I think that's quite cool. But what made you, as that rider in 2006 to now, go, okay, I'm going to do physio in biking? What was that trigger? Because you're quite passionate about that.
Massively passionate about it. I feel very, very strongly about it. So I had that period of time after I passed my test, and I had interesting experiences, as we all do when we pass our test. And I gave it Billy Big Bollocks and did all of that kind of stuff. And then I actually just had a break from bikes. For the biggest reason I had to make a choice at the time. My sister was a rower, so I've also been heavily involved in elite sport, and I've been an elite coach with rowing. And we made the decision together that we would form Zambia, because so I should also mention that I'm half Zambian. My father's a Zambian citizen.
Okay, wow.
And we grew up in Africa. So my sister and I decided that we wanted to form Zambia's first rowing team. And she was going to trial as a single sculler to go for the Olympics, and she asked me if I would coach her, because I'd had some success at a sort of national-ish type level as a coach and done quite well.
So with all due respect, you have every right to have a big ego. If you did.
No. But it's just a relative thing, you know. Yeah. For me, I was just a little small fish in a very, very big pond. And at that, you know, that was a sort of turning point, because I'd had at that stage an offer to ride 125s, to race 125s, or coach my sister at the Olympics, or to an Olympic dream. And so I went that way. Of course I did. So I then just didn't ride I sold my bike and didn't touch a bike really for about 9 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
Then came back to it about 4 years ago, when I bought my K3 600 and went straight back into being a bit of a dick. You know, I'm going to be honest. So I still had, I think, that chip on my shoulder a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just doing what I do and just getting on with it. And I was seeing a guy at the time who said, well, let's do a track day. So I went to Snetterton, and I was T-boned going off the start-finish straight into the right-hander. And at that point, I then had 3 non-displaced fractures in my shoulder. bruised lungs, and what they call a Hill-Sachs lesion, which is basically where you just have a chip of the bone in the shoulder, so that it's a ball and socket joint, and then so the ball for me is got a chip of bone taken out of it, so it's got a bit of a chunk missing, so it doesn't glide in the socket properly as a result of that. And all of these soft tissue injuries, a rotator cuff tear and all that kind of stuff. And so I then elected to come out of the NHS system. I have been so fortunate in that I've worked in a physiotherapy clinic for quite a long time, or had done at that stage, and went and just saw my boss, or my old boss at the time, who is my mentor, and I still now, if I've got something I don't know, I'm going to pick up the phone and ask her, and she's always there for me. She's amazing. Phenomenal physiotherapist.
Lovely
as well.
connection to have as well.
And I went to see her, and she's, obviously had this list of things that were going on. And she said, maybe you should just give up bikes. I'm like, no, Ange, I don't want to do that. That's not what this is about.
Yeah.
And then how do you explain to somebody who's not a motorcycle rider that crashing's kind of normal? Not that we need to normalise it, and I don't think it's healthy to normalise it. But unfortunately, it is a very...
It's like learning to ride a normal bike or any normal skill. You're going to falter every now and then. And it's knowing how to manage those falters. Mental health, everything is all the same thing. It's a muscle that you have to practice. And there'll be the blips in the road. But if you don't know how to, take care of it and, stroke it back to health, then, you kind of screw yourself up. So, absolutely. Yeah. Completely understand.
So I was quite frustrated. But, I did what I did. And I was on the bike again within 4 weeks. Which is stupid. I have a real issue with doing stupid things. So I will just throw in a bit of a curveball in terms of the stupid things I do with my life. Is that I've had horses all my life as well. Had a horse, kicked me in my arm. So I have a scar here. Yeah. And he broke my arm, and I left it for 8 days. I was absolutely convinced that it was fine. I could move my fingers. I could move my arm. It's fine. 8 days later, I go to A&E because it's still quite hurty. And an X-ray, and it's literally snapped clean in half. And I've been driving, I've been mucking out, I've been riding horses.
You sound so similar to me, though. I don't know if it's ego or you just saying to yourself, you know what,
you've got I'm
fine.
Don't make a big fuss.
Because
That's the thing, isn't it?
I broke my hand, and I came home, and it was like a claw. And I remember I was quite young. I was in my teens. And my brother says, oh, you're just doing that because you don't want to do the washing. And I was like, fine, I'll do the washing. So I held the sponge in there, and I'm washing the dishes. And I called my mum and said, Mum, I think I paralysed my hand. I'm just completely honest with her. She's like, all right, I'll be home in 3 hours. We'll go to 3 or 4 hours, and we'll go to A&E. Go to A&E, I still have the claw. And I'm sat in A&E, and my mum makes me laugh like no other. So we're in fits of laughter, we're crying, and it's painful. And I'm saying to the nurse, it's a 9 out of 10 pain.
Yeah.
But it should be fine. It's probably just a sprain. 6 hours later, they tell me it's a spiral fracture, and I must be in a dire amount of pain. I was like, yeah, I did tell you it was in a lot of pain. But you just don't process that, oh, okay, this is bad. This is an ouch. Maybe I should just stop. Because even when I came off my bike, everyone, my mum and everyone included, commended me for getting back on. Yeah. But I didn't compute that, okay, maybe I've really hurt myself here. I'll be fine. If you ignore it, it will be fine. So maybe, I don't know if it's an ego thing or a nice naivety that, it's all going to be okay.
I think sometimes it's adrenaline as well. Yes. I think sometimes in that heat of the moment, survival kicks in, doesn't it, a little bit, and you just got to crack on, and then life kicks in, and you have to just crack on. Sometimes you can't afford to just wallow in self-pity, and you have to, you put that in your head of, no, you've got to be strong. I've got to be strong, and I've got to carry on, and I've got to go to work, and I've got to keep doing this, and I can't make a fuss. And I think there's a lot of people do put that pressure on themselves, and it's not always healthy.
But it almost feels like a natural transition as well, because you've got the bikes and you've got the horses. And I do feel, because I did dabble in horse riding when I was quite young, but I had a car accident which paralysed the bottom of my back for a temporary period of time. So and it skewiffed my alignment, so I stopped riding.
Right.
But you translate a lot of those skills onto the bike.
Yeah.
How to hold the bike with your legs, your thighs, the control, the way you look ahead, the posture. So I don't know what your opinion is on which one is because I believe they both come with disastrous consequences if you get kicked or if you fall off your bike. They're both quite, catastrophic.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you've done horse riding, because you fall off quite a bit when you horse ride, learning to mount a horse, and it's very unruly. If it wants to do its own thing, it will. Which I think is quite nice when a bike doesn't do that. If it malfunctions, it will, but it's less of a...
less unpredictable.
Yeah, it almost feels safer to be on a motorbike than a horse.
100% agree, and I think probably, statistically, it probably is.
That's why I think you were probably able to just be like, "Oh, I fell off the bike. I'll be fine. I'll manage." Because when you've come off a horse, it's a completely different story. But it almost feels like the equivalent to two wheels.
Yeah,
so I'd probably say I'm not sure you're quite. I wouldn't say you had an ego, but I think you almost. Maybe a level of trust within yourself that you didn't want people to be like, oh, okay, push me down and think I'm small, I'm this, that, and the other. You know what? I can ride horses. I can do this.
Yeah. I mean, I think, it's like little man syndrome, isn't it? And I can't, like I say, I can't shy away from any of that.
Yeah.
I have to meet that head on and say that's a part of my history that I'm ashamed of. But you know what? I'm here now and there's no doubt that I'm going to continue to make mistakes and I'm going to make some poor life choices probably. But the difference now is that I have calmed down so much and everything does come from this. And every choice that I make and every decision that I take, comes from this huge sense of perspective, which has come from this massive exposure that I've had, as I say, to all of these different facets of what's involved with motorbikes, and some of them have been really, really positive, and others have been challenging. So but as I say, at the point at which I'm sitting in that physio room, I didn't. It's that whole thing of where'd you go? What do you do now when the people that you're turning to help are saying, well, just give it up.
Yeah.
Don't do it
So
anymore.
what was that mindset for you? How did you literally decide, I'm going to throw everything at this, I'm going to go straight into this and immerse myself?
Well, it was probably the second time I broke my other shoulder.
Oh, here we go. What haven't you broken?
So, to be fair, they are all I've broken on a bike. But yeah, so I did that at Donington, and that one was entirely self-inflicted. So again, I made an error of judgment. I came off track, done, broke my shoulder. You just got to take it. That's just how life goes. And again, went back, saw Angela, and she's like, don't you really, really should stop riding bikes now? And this is both shoulders. And I'm like, no, Ange, please, just no. I don't want to do that. So at that point, again, I'm thinking, well, there are, and I had sort of put it out there about where do bikers go? What options do we have? And I was aware of the fact that there were some go-to therapists out there. So I think there's Brian Simpson. He's way up north and he does a lot of motorsport stuff, but he's got a very, very high-end facility, and not everybody is going to have the ability to go up and see him. Not everybody's got access to a hyperbaric chamber, and so at that point there's just this whole demographic of people who are lost and a bit unsupported and a bit unsure about what their options are. So I then started thinking, okay, well, I'll support some young riders and I'll sort of start to build myself up that way. So I sponsored a couple of BSB riders. So in the support classes, so I had a young lad, a 16-year-old lad, and then a guy in his 20s. Supported them, and that was when I had the clinic that was based outside of within a CrossFit gym, and then COVID hit. So when COVID hit, that was it, done overnight, doors shut. Income shut, everything gone, the rug pulled from underneath my feet. And I'd only been open for 2 years at that point. So I built a business, got it to a point where it was okay. It was doing well, but it had scope and I had plans and everything was, stuff. And then COVID. And then what do we say about COVID? So that was the end of that. And I had to think about what my options were at that point. So it happened that my partner and his business partner had been given notice for where they were working. So they're car mechanics, but they've both been involved in bikes for 20-something years. Massively, massively experienced, the pair of them. And they took the lease on a new unit, which was modern and plush, and these two are like immaculate anyway. I mean, they are absolutely like on point with their cleanliness, and everything is pristine. They do everything to the millimeter with perfection. That's how they do their cars, it's how they do their bikes, it's how they keep their workshop. It's just absolutely magic. So this place that they had an upstairs, like a mezzanine floor. And once everything had been cleared out, we realised it was just massive, and that what were they going to do with it? It was an empty space. Yeah. So at that point, I'd been having conversations with Dale about, look, I really want to get involved with trying to offer some support to riders. What do you think? And he was like, well, we could put the treatment room upstairs. So we built one.
Oh, amazing.
So we now have a slightly unusual treatment room upstairs in a car garage. But at that point, it was perfect to go, right now, that is going to suit the demographic of bike riders. Absolutely perfect. Because at that point, I can get them in. We're in, got a nice plush reception, and we've got a bike room. We've got all of the bikes there. I can get them upstairs. I can see what's going on. And then if I need to do work with body positioning, see what's happening, get them upstairs, mobilise, stretch, treat, get them back downstairs, retest. I've got that, and I've got that ability to put them on a bike right there and then and watch them move and help them understand. So that was where...
And it's unique as well.
It is unique, yeah. So at that point, that was where V-Pro Performance went, right, it's happening.
Oh, so it's fairly new, isn't it, then?
Yeah, it literally, that treatment room was just about functional in the middle of December.
Wow.
Right before we went into a second lockdown.
But isn't that good, though, that you managed to find a way to, like, navigate yourself through that?
Yeah.
And you came out, thankfully, in a good way with lots of new prospects, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Because you actually do lots of therapy for some quite well-known riders as well that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should mention them or not, so I'll probably leave that there. But and that's what I was seeing on your page, was the fact that they were connected with you, and I was like, okay, so this person's actually really legit. Then you'd see all the fact that you were traveling around everywhere, and I just thought, she's doing everything. Because I found that with quite a lot of, I call them like my hidden gems that I find, and I'm like, wow, you're like true experience, business, the whole lot. And having the ability to speak and share and learn about how you've overcome things, the mindset behind it is really important. So going from there, what are your prospects like? Do you still do the events management and stuff? How did that all come about?
So that came about off the back of so Dale, when I met him, was an instructor for focused events, and he had made contact with me after I had my crash at Snetterton to say, you're not that far away. If you need support getting the bike back on the road, I'm a mechanic, I've got my own garage, I can help you, let me know. And I was like, that's fantastic. And he was one of many, and I cannot tell you how, because at the time, the guy that I was seeing at the time was so angry. He'd watched that crash happen, and he was fuming because the guy hit me, and then he rode off, and he packed up his bike, and he left. And that was the end of that. And do you know what? That happens. I didn't really care, but this guy was fuming, so he put something up on Facebook, and I had hundreds and hundreds of messages from people I've never known saying, I've got a clock bracket for you, I've got a subframe, I've got levers, do you want me to post them to you? Amazing. What an amazing community.
That is so wholesome, because I've heard of that. There was another girl I had on here, Charisma, and she said when she had issues with her business, people were messaging her like, oh my God, we're here, we've got this. And honestly, I have to say there's no community like it.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Because I've been part of the beauty industry, fashion, now bikes, and we do photography, videography. There's a real sense of camaraderie with the biker people, the biker community, and being able to reach out to people in your highs and your lows. That must have been an incredible feeling.
It was just really,
coming from something pretty shitty, but
yes, of course. So it was a slightly shitty situation to be in, because obviously I was nursing a broken shoulder, and and life actually just went a bit upside down at that point. It set off the wheels in motion for a massive change in my life, and a massively positive one, because actually, from all of that has led me to Dale. And Dale has been the single most influential person in my entire life.
You kept trying to get him on here. It was like you were just like I was like, I'd love to have you on here. No, Dale will come. I was like, I would love to have you on here. No, Dale. I was like, we'll see.
I mean, the guy is the man, the myth, and the legend. Let's just face it, and he is the facilitator of so many things, which is a bit of an in-joke. So yeah, if you ever meet him, you say, "Oh, Mr. Facilitator." He'll love it. But yeah, so at that, and then we just got together, and that romantic side of things just evolved. But he was instructing for focused events, and he'd said, "Look, I'll come ride with you." And then again, like, wow, right, so that's when learning happened. This is when real world, back in your box, proper learning happened with that, because that then, at the point at which I've gone through that 10 years before, 15 years before, whenever it was, that whole, I'm going to be part of London Bikers. And I was part of these groups, and I was at the Ace Cafe, and I was at Borough Market, and I was doing this, and I was doing that, and I went everywhere on my bike. I did it all back then. And then came into this situation, and suddenly it was like, right, okay, yeah, I need to get back in my box now. So we went out for a ride, and he went, "You're a liability."
Oh.
I was like, all right. What do I need to do? And that's not the first time I've had that, because I've had that a couple of times now. I had that when I did my first track day, and I got told by an instructor who came and found me, who said, "You're going to crash. You're an absolute liability.
Oh,
You're going to crash. Sort yourself out." And I went, all right, can I have a session? Can I go round with you? Yep, okay, fine. So that was that. And then again, same with Dale. You think I'd learn my lesson, but I hadn't. So then it was, went out with Dale, and he was like, just stop. Just stop.
What was it why did they say that you were a liability?
Because I was noisy and chaotic. So I was that person that would do a lot of revving of the engine, and I was that person that would ride down the road and I'd be weaving a lot, because it warms the tyres. And I'd be up and I'd be down and I'd be fidgeting and I'd be up 1 minute and down the next minute, and like I'd just be that person who was just always moving on a bike. And he was like, "You look chaotic. Just calm down. Just sit still." And that, do you know what? That's the biggest thing. So then that happened on the road, and then he took me to Snetterton. First thing, back on Snetterton, you got to put that demon to bed. Went there, and then that was it, really. So then we did a couple more, I think, at Donington. I can't even remember now. Like, they all blended into one. But so then that first 2 years, I'd gone from him saying, "You know what, you've got to wind your neck in a little bit here, because you're gonna kill yourself, And if you're going down the road and you're giving it all this and weaving and all that kind of stuff, at some point you might just make a bit of a bad error of judgment. You might just get caught out by something, and it's So now that's my choice to just go, I'm going to sit here. I'd rather be calm and classy and quiet and just look commanding than draw attention to myself. So I've elected to make that very distinct choice. So now I don't want to be drawing attention to myself. I don't want people to know too much. I'll be on my bike and I'll pull up and I'll go off and I'll do my thing. But then on track, it started to evolve. So we then went to Almeria. I knocked 18 seconds off my time at Almeria at the first trip there, and then came back, and then they were short of an instructor. They got properly caught out. They weren't caught out, but they just needed somebody to take this girl out. And I was like, well, help if you need me to. So put on an instructor's bib, took this girl out. She came in. Can I book you for a whole day next time round?
Oh, wow.
Feedback to the boss. Yeah, get her on. So, and then it didn't end up happening with her, but then I started wearing an instructor's bib. So I then started instructing on track. And I just had this huge trajectory from that person who was with Dale for my first track day after this massive crash.
It's almost like because you are like a bag of energy, which is amazing. And when I suppose sometimes you need it to be put somewhere and you need to be doing something to apply it for it to level out. Because everyone that knows me from my past, I honestly never slept, and I was just always like vibrating and just like, oh my god, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this. And as time goes on, as I got older, I engaged in so many other projects that took up my energy, that because something happens to me at 11 o'clock at night, and it's always at 11 o'clock I have the most energy, and I could be doing cartwheels around the house, I could be somersaults, something like this, and my poor partner's just like, what the hell are you doing? Even my business partner's just like, it's her crazy time, like she needs to draw, she needs to do something. And if I don't have a project going, I'm just a nightmare. I'm just so fidgety. And
agree.
My mum has the same kind of thing as well, and she's got dyslexia. I've got a bit of dyslexia, and I don't know if that helps with anything, but we're just fidgety, we're very spontaneous. We need to do this. And when I first was on my bike, I was all, riding around, standing and doing the whole, the business. And I think that's kind of probably why I came off as well, because I was trying to prove a point, and I was revving like, oh look, it's not me, it's the bike that's got the problem. And as soon as I started to facilitate and put myself in areas where I was using my energy creatively, but in more of a less kaboom kind of way, I just felt more structured and more like I was actually honing my talents instead of just throwing them at things and hoping they stick.
Scattergun approach, isn't it? Yeah. Like literally hoping something will stick somewhere, as opposed to being a little bit more sort of focused. And
because a lot of friends would say that to me growing up. They were like, oh, you can do everything. And I was like, there'd be half a drawing here and
exactly,
dance over here.
It's that jack of all trades, master of none thing, isn't it? And that, I'm exactly the same as you. So gone through my whole life being a jack of all trades,
master of nothing,
and not doing any of them particularly well.
Yeah.
So that's, that's kind of, I think from your perspective, and that's what I like about what you're doing, is that I think it's really important. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that somebody's come out and has started a really important dialogue.
Oh, you're making it about me. I'm going to hide under the table.
I would learn.
Back to you. She's like, oh no.
I only wanted to have a conversation with you. I didn't want to be on the podcast. But
that's what I think is really amazing. And my only thing here with the podcast was, if this stops me going into a cocoon and becoming lost and emotional, and in the evenings, a lot of people saw the straight face of me, the happiness, but they wouldn't see my hissy fits at home, that I wasn't understanding, couldn't buy my bike, couldn't afford it, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. No one saw all of that pain and that desire, but nothing was coming out of it. And I thought, okay, if I just speak, it's a therapy for me, it's a therapy for hearing people's stories. And there are people that are just solely Instagram people, or people you would never come across in day-to-day life, that have incredible stories. And if we can share them and we can all hear about them, and one day no one will listen to a podcast, and then maybe that one person will check in on it and it'll make the biggest difference. That's what I care about. I don't care about the numbers. I'm not going to go promote everything here, there and everywhere, because I don't need to. This will find the people it needs to find, because they'll be searching for it. And it honed me in massively, because I was working with so many different people, so many different brands, and it just, nothing was in a line. Nothing was, this is who I am. I was more trying to fit into other people's brackets. And that was the energy that wasn't right. So I found my business partner Shaz and my partner Nathan, and they both, they're like barriers for me. They keep me going on my road. So there'll be days where I feel exhausted, and I think that's what you have with Dale, is he kind of filters that energy, makes it into good V-power, and then puts it in your Ranger instead of just the casual petrol. He's like, okay, let's filter that, let's make it some nice stuff and make it good, concentrated, focused
it's funny
energy.
You should say that, because he's so particular about what fuel he puts in his engines.
So is my partner. He's like, I'm not going there. The next petrol station's half an hour away. We can make it. And we're like, oh my god,
petrol roulette, just for the sake of
It's like, I'm not going to that place.
Unleaded.
Yes. It has to be the V-power. It has to be from a good petrol station. The nightmare. The stuff that I would never consider. But now I've become a bit of a petrol snob because of those things.
So it's interesting that you should say that, because actually there is this whole thing of, I have always had cheap bikes, so I've never, I don't come from money, I don't have money, I'm especially now I'm a new business and we've had a global pandemic, and so life's tough. But I've never had high powered machines. I've never had a bike that cost more than $2,500, and that's my current 750. So I've never really thought about the fuel that I put in, but Dale has all of his vehicles are pretty decent. You know, he has an M3 and he's got this S1000 RR that is tricked up to hell and back, and it's beautiful. And at that point, he is not going to put cheap stuff in a £12,000 machine, is he? Whereas me, I'm like, it's only £1,000. Like, my bike's a rust bucket.
But I loved that about you. So even when you rocked up today and you were just like, oh, you know it's going to fall over at some point, there was a relief of, oh, it's not that serious. Like, because my bike was quite expensive. Mine was 3.5, nearly 4 for what it was. And I was like, okay, you know, I don't want to ever drop it. I'm going to hug it. I'm going to do this. And then when it came off and there was scratches, honestly, I sat there on the side of the road looking at it, and I was like, my satin black. It's not satin anymore. And then my partner was like, well, if it was gloss, it probably would have been fine. You could probably buff them out. We have to sit there and you have to buff it out in front of me to show me that it will be fine. I was like, I need a new fairing now. I need new fairings on my bikes and all of this. And it for me, I learned dropping it was okay, and as hard as and how cringe I feel about it, I was like, okay, dropping it is fine,
but it's okay to drop it.
This is what it's supposed to be. It's a vehicle, go with it. Like and I suppose I hang around with a lot of people that their cars are their children, and then I'm there like, and I've made my poor partner ride as Aprilia with the supercoursers and everything in the most awful weather when he would never take out in rain, and I've just made him go torrential rain, this, that and the other, because I'm all about the experience and this like the spontaneity, but then I'd never had the responsibility of my own vehicle like that. So when it's your own, you're like, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this.
Different life choices now. The consequences are down to me.
Do you know what? Coming from like a spontaneous, scatty, like just let's do it, to there's things can happen, and because like you said, like I didn't come from money, but my mum, she's built a really good business, and we've kind of got money as we've got older, and you know, her buying her new car and all of these things, it's just been the most hilarious, and that was on a whim as well. I just was in the car, I was like, you have to go buy it now, and she was like, no. I was like, go on. And she was like, that's awesome. I've booked an appointment in. And it's the same with how we bought our house. We went for it. And it's finding the right energies around you that can calibrate you in such a healthy way. Because I do think community is a conversation I've had with a lot of people. Community is super important, because you can be around those egotistical maniacs that, you know, oh, you need to show more body. You need to do this. You need to do that. And sometimes I just want to learn to ride and not want to race anyone, not want to learn how to do wheelies and spin around and whatever anyone else is doing. I just want to focus on my experience, and that's the people I want to have on here, the healthy mindsets, the good banter, the positivity, the we look out for each other vibe. And
100%.
Do you think there's a lot of community that you've met since being with Dale, or what has that difference been for you?
I think the biggest difference really is the different type of community. So I've come away from being a bit spontaneous and a little bit sort of a bit chaotic. You know, there's no other word for it really. Very much more into keep your head down, your mouth shut, your ears open, learn. Because I'm around people who are so experienced. I'm just, not just Dale, but the people that we move in, the people that we have turning up at track days, the people that are turning up at dealer events, the dealers, you know, that whole different dynamic between all of these people from one end of the biking spectrum to the complete other end, you know, like for example we had Troy Corsa on a track day a couple of weeks back. Well, I mean, the guy can ride.
You're just like,
I just don't even know, you know. And you're not starstruck by any stretch, because he's just a bloke, and we get lots of people like that, you know.
I love that. I completely agree with that mindset, because
Yeah.
there was always, I live in Wembley, there's always celebrities around,
Oh, it's just
and
people.
they're just people, but I'm in awe of the stories
Yeah.
and what you've done and your skill set. That's what I want to learn. No, I love that.
Yeah, I'm interested in how they got there. I'm not interested in what they're doing now
No.
or who they are. I'm all about that backstory. But I think, as I say, my focus now all of the time in every given situation is head down, mouth shut, ears open.
Yeah.
What can you learn out of this situation? And no matter how much we've done now, having come out, Dale and I don't instruct anymore because we've moved away from that into running days. And when you step, as I said before, away from a track day a track day customer to then a track day instructor to the people who are running the track day, you've got all three different perspectives of what goes on. And then, as I say, we do the manufacturer events, and you get this whole, different dynamic of so many. You get people who've only passed a test 2 weeks ago turning up and wanting a test ride. You get people who've been riding for 47 years who've got 12 bikes turning up for their test rides. And you talk to them and you learn about them, and there's just nothing now, really. There's very, very, I can't remember the last time that we were surprised by a situation.
That's a really good position to be in, though.
Yeah. Very little surprises us anymore. And it sounds an awful thing to say, but we've learned to kind of understand how things can happen. Now, some people are going to say, well, that's being judgmental. You'll look at somebody and you'll judge them. To a degree, we have to. It's my job. So when, for example, especially with the manufacturer events, if we're doing the dealers stuff, it's my job to make sure that the person turning up to ride that bike is appropriate. So, for example, it happens quite regularly that somebody who passed their test 3 or 4 weeks ago will want to ride an H2. And that's not going to happen. Yeah. I'm sorry. We have a duty of care to that person, to our guide riders, to the other people on that group-led ride, to the members of the public, to make sure that everybody is in the safest possible position. And putting somebody onto a supercharged motorcycle when they've only been riding 3 or 4 weeks is not going to be a good move. Yeah. So at that point, I have to judge them a little bit. I have to say, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen quite that way. Then I'll have a bit more of a conversation with them, and then I'll find out a little bit more. And then you can kind of go, okay, well, this person's quite sensible. All right, well, here's another route to that as a possibility. Then I'll have a conversation with Dale or Kevin or whoever else is there. Right, this is the situation. Can we put them out on a Z900, assess them, see what they're like? Is it, and sometimes it's no. And sometimes it's, okay, well, let's see what they're like. So there's always that fielding of information, processing of information, that means that I, as that person who has to kind of get that information, learn so much. I just learn so much about what people are doing with bikes, and people do mega stuff with bikes.
I don't know if I have seen or if I've I don't know much. What actually happens at a manufacturing event, or what do they entail?
It's really simple. So, for example, with at the moment we're doing BMW and Kawasaki. So you can go onto the BMW or Kawasaki websites and you can book a test ride at your local dealer, because we will. The focused events are running. They are contracted by the manufacturer in the UK to tour around the country, visiting the dealers, providing the infrastructure for the dealership to then offer test rides. That then gives them exposure and hopefully then generates sales.
Ah, okay.
So, yeah.
Right. I think I've been on one. So a few years ago there was one that they did the Royal Enfield one at Ace Cafe.
Yeah, we've done stuff like that before. Yeah. So again, recently we've been mostly based out of the dealerships directly, but we got into that because we were asked to help with the Yamaha Nikon. So I don't know if you know about the Nikons, the three-wheelers.
Right, okay. I think that's what my business partner was. It was a three-wheeler.
Yeah, no, the Nikons are mega. Like, they're brilliant. But we got asked to do that, and I think we went up to there was a bike show up in Edinburgh, and that was our first event. And then we did a couple of events with BMW at Box Hill, and we've done it with Yamaha. I'm going to be honest, I don't even know if I should be mentioning any of these manufacturers and stuff, but there is an element of just exposure, isn't there? So but the reality is that it gives the general public an opportunity to see what is available in a range of machines on any given year. So we've got a fleet of, I think, let's say it's 15 Kawasaki's and however many BMW's that are available for people to ride. And you might get somebody who wants to ride, for example, the Ninja 650, then they might want to ride a Versys 1000, or then they might want to ride an H2. And it gives them that spectrum of different types of bikes that offer very, very different things. Or you get those people who are out and out. I've had a Versys my whole life. That's what I want. Yeah. I just want to know what the 2121 model's like. I'm due for an upgrade. Done. And they just want to ride that bike. And it gives them that opportunity. So it's a taster session where people can go and just get an experience of that bike. And then they can go away, and for some people, it's enough to go and put a deposit down, buy the bike because it was brilliant. For others, it's, do you know what, I actually could do with a bit of a longer test ride on that. So back to the dealer, and then the dealer will facilitate that. So enable them to take the bike out as you would book a normal test ride. And then for some people it's I thought I'd really like that, not for me, but that one really is. So it's a great opportunity for people to
I didn't even think for a second of all these other little areas that there are in the bike world. And I'm just like, when you're peeling away at this onion of that's the bike world, you're like, okay, there's the stunt riding, there's the track days, there's the touring, and then hang on a second, and there's you over on this side, the physio, the instructing our track day. All of these things are just never even crossed my mind. But did you go into all of this pretty recently, or have you been doing this for quite a while?
Recently. So I would say that all started to happen about 4 years ago. So, but Dale was, as I say, he'd been instructing for a couple of years before that, and had been doing track days for 20-something years. So he already had a bit of a reputation. He already has a presence. He's a very commanding presence on and off a motorbike, and he just is the person that you just trust. He's just got that energy of, when he says...
It seems like that connection's really transformed your life as well.
Oh, unbelievably so.
I really think having the right people around you creates the absolute dynamic that you need to take you that step further, but also having that humility that even fashion, beauty, I was saying to you earlier, one of my friends turned around and said to me, I'll teach you how to contour differently and it'll make you look amazing. Yeah. If my ego was, I'd have been like, well, I've been doing this for years. But I suppose in the influencer world, in my side of things, and I suppose in normal generic life anyway, or what you do in the world, there's always room for improvement, or even knowing what's not good is enough knowledge in itself. Because to turn around and be like, actually, I've tried that, I didn't like it because X, Y, Z. Yeah. Having that ability to engage in conversation instead of just blocking yourself off from experiencing things as you go along. There's a lot of people out there that are like, well, I know what's right for me. I've been riding for this long, X, Y, Z. And you just think, okay, well, if you don't have that room for improvement, there will always be something somewhere with all new bikes, gear, all of this. There'll always be room to grow in a healthy manner. So I'm going to ask you, what has been one of your highlighting experiences riding? Or in your business or the bike world?
I think the biggest highlight, I have to say, I wouldn't put it down to one single thing. That sort of first proper year of being on track with Dale, where we did a lot, I say a lot of track days, it's still probably only just into double figures, so I haven't really done that much. But that journey, that trajectory of your reliability, you're going to crash, to you're so capable and you can run this pace. And so, no, there's one highlight, and I've just remembered it, was at Almeria. And it was the first Euro I've ever done, and I'd gone out with a group of friends. Dale had been helping me out on track, so just helping me with his lines, and then I'd kind of just done sessions on my own. And I had 3 different people come to me saying, you are such a pleasure to follow around that track. You are so smooth and your lines are so predictable. I've just followed you for the whole session.
Wow.
And I was like...
So from being a liability to hearing that must be a massive...
And all of a sudden, that was like a switch moment for me of, it's not about going fast.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden I stopped trying and I went fast. Or I went faster, and, this is a relative thing because I am not fast. But I've gone, and I couldn't believe it. Like, people just finding me in pit lane saying, I followed you for that session. You were so smooth. And I'm like...
And for them to even go out of their way to come and approach you.
Never thought that would ever be me. Ever. In a million years did I ever think that. Especially, as I say, I've kind of been put in my box a little bit. And don't let your ego get too big. You're not that great, to suddenly, wow, okay, so this is what happens when you make good choices. This is what happens when you take bad feedback, I suppose, and go, well, I'm going to make something good out of that. And that was my choice. At the point at which you get told, you're not that great, just, you're a liability or whatever it is, twice. You make that choice of how do I respond to that?
Sorry, I was just thinking in my head, how did you overcome that feeling of, because I know when if someone said to me you're a liability, I would put the front on like, okay, I want to learn, but I'd go home and probably cry.
No, absolutely not.
How did you go and process and decide that, okay, I'm going to be 10 times better than I am?
By realising that it was the truth.
And nothing more.
Nothing more.
Less.
Literally going, well, you wouldn't be saying if it wasn't true.
Yeah.
This, and again, it's recognising, it's having that exposure, isn't it, to other people's experience. That came from two instructors, one being Dale, one being a random instructor not a random instructor, but an instructor on a normal track day. They are in that position because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they're not just saying it because I'm a girl or because they're bored or, they've got nothing else to do with their day. They're saying it because they have been in the game, they've been around the block, this ain't their first rodeo, they know their shit, that's what they've observed, and that's their feedback. So at that point, all right, fair enough, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do now? And that's what I did. And so at that point, because I'd given it with Dale when I met him, I was giving it that I'm going to go racing. That's my thing, I'm going to go racing. And I'd made plans, and I'd even put myself in the local paper with my friend at the time because we were going to be in a race team together, and it was fabulous. And Dale was like, "Yeah, kid, you've got so much to learn.
Oh.
You're gonna get your ass handed to you, and you're going to find yourself in trouble on a racetrack because you're not ready. You haven't got track etiquette. You haven't got track mileage. You just need to learn some stuff first, and then you will be safe, and other people will be safe." And so that's what I did. I then said, okay, well, I won't do it. I won't do it this year. This year, it'll be all about the learning. So that's what I did. I went with him around every track that I could possibly do, and I learned as much as I possibly could. And 4 years down the line, I still haven't raced.
Yeah.
I will do next month, and that will be my first race.
Amazing.
And it won't be anything like I thought. It's not the journey that I thought I was going to take, but I think it's the right one. And again, I'm trusting, that again, that's this, it's shifted my perception again, because I've always thought, well, I was going to take my 600 and I was going to race that. And he was like, do you know what, you'd be better off on a 400. Like, just learn how to ride a small bike, be really capable on a small bike, learn what that's capable of, step it up and build up gradually. So now I'm like, let's get a 125. So now we have a 125 race bike, and I tell you not, unbelievable, I didn't know the meaning of the words throw a bike around a track until I sat on a 125 and realised, yeah, you literally throw it around, and it is so much fun. Oh my God.
I've not heard of people going like up it. I've heard of going up in engines, but I haven't heard of like going back down.
Yeah, no, but I'm, that's the choice that I've elected to make. I've never been a big bike rider. I've ridden plenty of thousands, and they're just not for me. I mean, maybe one day I'd have one on the road, possibly, but I'm never going to take them around a track because I just don't know that I would get what I wanted out of a track day from that bike. And that's just me. So I've had my 600, and And I'm learning a lot. I've learned a lot from that 600, and it's an old 600. It's a 2003, and it's completely standard. I think the only thing I've got on it is like rear sets. So it's not tricked up or anything. And I've had to learn how to ride that properly to enable me to get the most out of myself on track. I'm still a long way from getting the most out of the bike on the track.
Yeah.
But when you learn to ride on a 600, you have to learn, especially when you're on a track day and you're learning to ride in and amongst bigger bikes, your 750s and your 1000s, you have to plan. You have to learn to be so much more strategic with what you're doing. Because if you are going past bigger bikes and you are going a bit faster, you need to start thinking 2-3 corners ahead about where you're going to tee up a pass
100%.
because you haven't got that power. So you need to be thinking about and being strategic about where you're going to position yourself to get past them in a safe way that then means that you can perhaps put distance between you before the straight when they're going to come flying back past you again, and you wind up having to do it all again. And that's what it's like on a 600. So I thought, I've always thought, the 600 would be the biggest thing that I would ever choose to ride on track or to race. Not that I've raced any of it now for one reason or another, but I now have a 750 road bike, and I have to say that's perfect for me. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely perfect. I haven't ridden it on track, and I probably won't, which means I will. And I don't see, because for me that gives me everything that I'm used to doing on a 600 in terms of the way that I like to ride a bike and the way that I choose to ride a bike. It suits a 750, so I can do all of the things that I've always done on a 600 and have that tiny bit more squirt to get myself out of a corner or to keep up a little bit more. So for me, that's kind of as big as I'd want to go for now, because I've still got a lot to learn.
Yeah.
On a track, that 125 has been an eye-opener for me. It's been a real learning curve, and I've only taken it on a go-kart track twice. And all of a sudden, I'm like, right, I get it. Wow, okay, so this is what I've got to learn. And it's just this whole open book of, now I know what it's like to find the limit of a bike. Mm. And then I hopefully, if I have a journey that goes anything like the way I want it to, we'll have a season on that, and we'll do some rounds on that. And then I'll still achieve that dream that I'm still clutching and missing of riding the 400s. And that's an enormously competitive class to run in. And that is going to teach me an awful lot. And who knows, I might never come out of that, but I'm not going to move out of that class until I'm capable of moving out of that class. And then I might run into a 600. And that'll probably be where I finish up. You know, I'm not going to go trying to race 1,000.
So I've learned literally so much. I feel like my mind's going to explode, and I wish my partner was here to listen as well, but I'm gonna have to make him listen to this, because there's so much I've taken from this episode in itself of, I suppose a lot of it has just been riding for yourself and taking the steps necessary for yourself, and what league each bike has and can take you into different areas of expansion in what you can learn. So for somebody learning to ride, getting into riding, already a rider, what would be your top piece of advice?
Listen. Just listen. Stop talking.
Silence.
There's so many people out there with such vast amounts of knowledge that you can just have this whole world open up in front of you if you just peel it back and listen and let them unleash on you. And it's fascinating. I've had so many incredible conversations, and I think it's brilliant. And as I said, I think it's really important that even if you've not got those people right in front of you to have conversations with, we've got things like this podcast that are happening where people can listen, and learn so much from, and the people that you've had on have all had so much value to offer. And I just think that some of the topics that you've covered through all of that, I think have just been so fundamental and so necessary. That's my advice. If you're a rider, listen. listen to podcasts like this, listen to the people around you, open your eyes, observe, see what people are doing, and just be open-minded enough to absorb it. Like, just let it all kind of sink into your psyche a little bit, and then process that and let it evolve however you want to. But yeah, God, just
take it in.
Sometimes you just got to stop talking and, you know.
I love that, because we haven't had that as a piece of advice before, but it's been one really massive step for me as well, when the point of the podcast was to listen to others instead of harping on at myself in my head, because sometimes when you go round and round in your own head, you want to push your boundaries where you're not ready to push, or you've not ironed out something which will impact you later on in life, whether it's mindfully or spiritually or work related. They'll crop up if you don't learn to listen to yourself and what's right at the time.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, you know, you have to always remind yourself, irrespective of motorcycles or anything else, but you have to remind yourself that you always have choices.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has a choice at any given moment about what they're saying, what they're thinking, and this is what a lot of people forget. And, you know, mental health at the moment is something that's so important. You can choose what you think.
Yeah.
You know, like, you either open that door and let it step through into your mind, or you close that door and you keep it on the outside.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's down to you. It's not down to anybody else. And you just, you know, those choices could be life or death, really.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about it, not just from any perspective.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I can talk candidly, I'm going to just tell you a story about what just happened at the weekend. Yeah. So I will say that it's quite graphic, and I'm not going to hold back because I think it's quite important. But we were 6:30 in the morning driving to an event. We'd driven down one part of the road, and out of the corner of my eye, I'd seen a motorcycle pull out of a housing estate. So I turned and I looked at it, and I watched him pull out of this housing estate. And I thought, he's a bit keen. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that instant judgment. Awful thing to say, judgment. He's a bit keen. It's a bit lively for 6:30 in the morning, and it's a bit chilly. And he's not wearing any proper gear. Anyway, so he goes that way. We go round the roundabout, join the dual carriageway. A minute and a half later, we see some trainers in the road.
Oh, God.
100 metres down the line, Christ, there's a body in the road.
Oh.
Is he dead? And then we see the bike. And it's the guy that I've just seen come out of it. So this guy's helmet had come off because it wasn't a full face helmet. He hadn't done his chin strap up. Helmet's come off, we think. And at the point at which we find him, his torso is up on the curb and on the verge, and his legs are in the road. And he has a very curb-sized hole in the back of his head. And you know, he was just about breathing. But you could tell, you know, like, unfortunately, you just know when that's an automatic response, and you know that there's not much going to come good out of that situation. And I got back in the car, you know, the police arrived, paramedics arrived, roads closed, blah, blah, blah. So Dale and I were first on scene to that. We were the first two people to go up and look at him and go, Christ, okay, this isn't good. There's big old hole in the back of his head. And there's blood bubbling out of his ears and blood bubbling out of his nose, and it's just, there's stuff happening that just shouldn't be happening. And I get back in the car and I'm like, he made some bad choices this morning. Yeah. He made some bad choices at the point at which he chose not to do his chin strap up, or he made some bad choices at the point at which he didn't wear a jacket, he didn't wear proper you know, he was in tracksuit bottoms, soft shell jacket, neoprene like mechanic type gloves, and I'm like, if he'd have worn a helmet, if he'd have worn a proper helmet and he'd done his chin strap up, he'd be alive. And he's got 6 kids. 35 years old. 6 kids died because of that choice. And that's what I mean, you know, so it's a very, very grave conversation to have. But it's such a necessary one, because I've listened to all of your other podcasts and I've kind of gone, I'm really glad they're having that conversation about kit and gear and how important it is, and how it's not just about convenience or style or whatever, but yes, you know, why can't you have both but still be damn safe? But you've got to put it on.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I learned that not a stupid way, but I've learned that as I've gone along. So I was learning with my ex-partner,
Yeah.
and I didn't ever do my chin strap up.
Oh God, do it up.
And and I was pillion at first, but then when I started riding, he started explaining to me the severities of all sorts of things, and I learned, because I used to I'd drop my helmet a few times, like I was just like,
no,
okay,
you put it back on your head.
yeah, it is what it is. And as I started to learn more and see more and experience more, I'm like, I'm not going anywhere without that chin strap up, because I don't like things over my face. I get quite claustrophobic. It just suddenly happens. Like I can control it if I'm thinking, like processing it, but if something catches me off guard, I can get quite claustrophobic.
Yeah.
And with the helmet on, that's quite difficult, because I just want to keep opening my visor. So I can't. I struggle with ballies and things like that.
Yeah.
And the chin strap for me was stress, especially with the jacket and everything. But then knowing that, that's going to save my life. Because one of the reasons why I set this up as well, because I got quite pissed off that I saw a girl that I knew of, and she was like, oh, I've got my really nice helmet here from this company, and it's a great helmet. Then she was like, but if you can't afford it, you can go on eBay and you can buy a really cheap one and I just that's why I stress the importance of like gear, because you don't want to be going to just buy the cheap helmet, because it's your life. If you're not willing to replace that helmet every few years, or when you've dropped it, or when you know, if you're not willing to do all those things, you're not ready to ride. Because you need to be replacing your gear, you need to be maintaining your gear, you need to make sure that everything's done upright. I mean, sometimes I get my business partner or my best friend or my partner to zip me up and make sure everything's done, because I can't be bothered, because it's so much effort sometimes.
Oh, God, isn't it a faff?
Yeah, and you're just like, it's like an extra 15 minutes to get the gear on, and God help you if you need the bathroom, right? So it's like,
don't even talk to me. I have the most pointlessly small bladder in the world, right? Let me tell you about the heartache and hell of having to do a bush wee in a one-piece leather. Oh my good Lord.
I have not experienced that yet, thank God. But honestly, I will hold myself till mercy. Like we're going to my partner's parents' house, and it's a good hour and a bit, and I will not need the toilet, I will not get off, I don't need to take my helmet off, I just need to get there. I don't want to faff, I don't want to, because also if you're when you're getting ready at home and you kind of get it on nicely, then you go out and you take off your glove or something, it doesn't fit back in properly, and you're just like,
I know. Why doesn't it ever just, at the point at which you've stopped for that comfort break, why doesn't it all just go back on the way it did when you left
or
home?
There's that strand of hair that's escaped, and you're just like, don't help me.
I think I said to you earlier about this fresh hell of having long hair, which I've never had in my life before, but God, you need to have it plaited on a bike, otherwise
and tucked it in.
Kiss goodbye to an hour of your life trying to brush that
I have to
out.
tuck it in, and on the way back there was this bit flying out, and I was trying to protect it. Like, no, but like, please don't do this to me. But the importance of gear, the things I didn't realise. Because I'm thinking, how's the helmet going to fall off my head? Like, is it really going to happen?
It does.
And then
only takes a bit of wind.
Yeah, because my ex-partner didn't think I'd become a rider like myself until I kind of showed up and was like, yeah, I'm doing this. Then he was like, you do know the importance. And then to take me the other side of the spectrum, he would then dress me up in all his gear, which was like massive. And I'd be driving down like a little side road at like 10 o'clock at night learning, but I had this massive Dainese like two-piece textile set on, and I was strapped into everything, and I looked like I have a video somewhere, but I looked like a marshmallow woman just like on the bike. But it was like, okay, safe. I'm safe.
You've just got to be safe. And you've got to think about those choices that you make.
We live near Ace, and we constantly hear of, I'd call them ego riders. Constantly on the ride outs, they had to be airlifted, and they're young people, and community's so small, and you hear about that. So the importance of gear, but wearing it properly, getting those zips up, and if coming from, if you're claustrophobic but you can't look past it, then it's not for you. Don't risk that health. God, I feel like I could chat to you forever. I am so grateful for you to come on. I've really enjoyed it. I feel like I've made a really good friend.
Oh, thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
I feel like I'm going to be messaging you all the time about things like help me.
Help me. You know, as I say, like we've talked about so many other things, which has been amazing, but like we haven't really covered the physio or the therapy side of things. But you know, that's what it's there for. Like I said at the start, there is the facility. If you come off, well, obviously you're not going to go through that process now because you got my number, and I would expect you to be picking up the phone, saying, "I've hurt this. What do I do?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'll either say, "We'll try this, this, and this," or "I think I need to see you. Come in and let's have a chat."
Yeah.
Or "I can't help you with that one, but here's the person that can."
Yeah.
And that's the options that I fully expect you to be taking. But there is that, you know, as I say, there's that facility for everyone else as well. And I will just say that I'm constantly surprised now that it still happens even with racers. So I've got two guys. One's a TT racer. One is a super stock racer, I think, or super. I can't remember. Both of which have had catastrophically bad accidents. One broke his back. One has got a leg that's been snapped in however many pieces. And both of them are like, well, the NHS have just said that we shouldn't ride bikes anymore. So what do we do? And one, you know, and all of a sudden I'm like, where do these people go? You know, how can they get the best support properly, the best possible support to be able to get back out and race by somebody who actually kind of understands that and who isn't going to do what my physio did, which is, well, just stop riding bikes.
I think that's what's most important though, because the NHS are only designed to get you to a living standard. Yeah. They're not designed for you to go back out there and, you know, do the most.
Exactly. And the A&E side of things is just phenomenal. Yeah. And it's, you know, there's nothing like it in the world, and we are so fortunate. But it is everything that happens once you're out of there where I think the shortfall comes. And I think the flip side of that is that you've got to be able to talk to somebody to say, not just about, oh, I've broken my shoulder, or you know, I've done this or I've done that, or I've hurt this, what do I do now? You know, there's so many facets of, actually, do you know what, when you've broken a bone, you've got to eat like 5,000 calories a day. You've got to up your calorie intake. You've got to keep your protein intake up. You've got to rest. But then you also need to keep moving, you know, so there's a fine balance, and these are the things that you can do safely. There's so much of that, but there's also that, I can't work. What do I do? My insurance won't pay out. Where do I go to talk about the fact that I'm enormously stressed by this situation, and my mental health is suffering now because I've got this mass, I've got a family to feed, to feed, and I can't work. And what happens? And there isn't anywhere to go. And I think where I could see and where I want this to go is an infrastructure of therapists up and down the country where there is a safe haven for people to go for treatments, and for somewhere to talk about the practical sides of what it's like to live if you can't work and your insurance doesn't pay out, and you know, that kind of stuff. So
because knowing where to go with your business and how you're expanding, that's also really cool to know. Like I said, I feel like I'm going to talk to you forever. And yeah, also because when you come out of something that's quite traumatic, be it a small break or sprain or whatever it could be, emotionally that can knock you for six depending on what's going on in your life. Sometimes you just need to be, in I suppose the easy sense of the word, mummied back to health.
Sometimes you just need somebody to care enough, you know. It's that
to give me the list of this is what you do, this is what you eat,
exactly,
stick to it, because sometimes the thinking is the part that is debilitating. And I know that when it comes to losing weight or anything, if you're not in the right frame of mind for it, it's so tough to even after I broke my hand, I did a lot of art, so I used to draw quite a lot for years, and now I've got this Spock he sits on the other side of the room to me and goes, why is there a huge gap between your two fingers? Now everyone's going to notice it.
Ridiculously elegant fingers, I might say. You're just unbelievably glamorous. I think you might be the most glamorous person I've ever cut eyes on. It's ridiculous, and you smell as good as you look.
Oh, great.
I've only just realised how ridiculously elegant your hands are.
Oh, that's a good sign then. So they won't look at the Spock thing in between.
I wouldn't have noticed that if you hadn't put it.
Because for ages I had the fingers banded together, but nobody taught me how to, even on my back when they were just like, oh, you're not going to be able to horse ride anymore, you're not going to be able to do this, you're not going to be able to do that.
See, I don't like that.
I spent ages upstairs. My mum would go, what are you doing upstairs? Because she'd hear me thumping, because I'd be constantly, the only thing I thought of was to do the complete opposite of what I was told I couldn't do.
Yeah.
So I was in my room trying to do the crab every evening until one day I managed.
Yeah.
And I became super flexible.
Good.
Because I just kept at it. And with drawing, it's still a tough one. I hate writing.
Yeah.
Because I suddenly get a cramp. And in cold weather riding, it really seizes up. I'm very good at pushing through it. But it's having the support to turn to when my shoulder went, all of those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just thought, I just have to live with it, put cream on it, see what happens.
You don't have to, and this is my point, and you don't have to live with it. Obviously, there will be some things that you do have to live with.
Yeah.
That's always going to happen.
But there's the support there.
There is support there. And, I've written 3 books now, maybe 4 ebooks that are all available for free on the website.
Incredible.
What to do if you crash, what to do if you've got concussion, what to do if you break a bone.
You're going to have to send me the links. I'm going to include them at the bottom.
Yeah, and they're just useful little bits of information that give you, if you have a broken bone, and even if you have surgery, you don't have surgery, whatever that outcome is on a clinical basis, these are the things that you could be doing that you're in control of that will help you get better more efficiently than if you didn't do any of it at all. So it talks about diet, it talks about exercise, it talks about self-care, it talks about mental health, and that giving yourself that time to process the information. But as I say, it's just because that information isn't there. You have a crash, and it was really aimed at track day riders, that one, because it happens so often, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard this, that whole thing of, I had a crash last year, hurt my shoulder, still really hurts now, and it bothers me when I'm on my bike, but I just get on with it.
A lot of the girls I've spoken to, they've been like, I've got a bit of a bad shoulder, oh yeah, this and this and this, but it's like, I'm pretty sure if you knew the right exercises and the right things, even myself,
exactly,
you'd be fine.
Yeah, and I think that's also a direction that I want to go in, is digital rehab. So I'm in the process, I've done one already, which is a program that you can buy for back pain, so chronic back pain. It's a really different way, and I come at things very holistically when I treat any ailment really, but especially things that are quite complex like back pain. It's a program you can buy, and you download it, and it gives you everything from it gives you a book to supplement it with information on what might be happening, what it means to you, how you can understand what's happening, and then obviously just a series of videos. So again, I want to do the same thing for the people that are that person who, I came off my bike, I hurt my shoulder, I went to the med centre, they cleared me, I couldn't ride my bike, but I'm all right, I went to work the next day, but it's just given me a bit of do you know what, that's bread and butter for me. I can really easily give you a 12-week program that you can do yourself.
Yeah, and it's worth the investment.
And it's going to be so much more.
He suffers really badly from back pain. I'm going to have a look into that and get him to...
link.
Yes, you'll have to, because I got him into yoga for a little while.
Oh, yoga's brilliant.
But he was exhausted from it, but his back was slightly improved.
Yeah.
But if he had, a program to follow, I think that would help him more, because he's directed. If he knows the outcome of something, then he will follow it through. I think that's exactly the right thing, is that you want to give people the chance to achieve a better outcome, and you want to educate people about the fact that outcome is possible for them. You don't always have to just take it on the chin, accept what you're told, and go, oh, all right then, from the NHS. Despair,
Exactly. You've got options available to you, and there's so much that you can do to help yourself, even if you haven't got the money to go down the private road and pay for private treatments. And it's that niche of people really, or that demographic of people that I want to help, because I was that person. And, it's so important from my perspective that people are empowered with choice, and empowered with knowledge, and empowered with opportunity to take control of their own outcome, especially with injuries.
I love that.
So we want to educate people about what they can do. What does this injury mean to that person? And you don't realise this, and I find myself saying this on a daily basis to however many people that walk through a clinic door, that you're worth it. Our bodies are the vessels by which we experience every single second of life, good and bad, whether we're sleeping, whether we're getting married, whether we're sitting here doing a chat, all of that's being experienced through our body. The things that we spend all this money on, the track days, the bikes, the cars, the holidays, it's all experienced through our body. But do you know what? We'll spend the money on a track day, we'll spend the money on an exhaust for the bike, we'll spend the money on tyres. We won't spend the money on getting treatment to make our back better or fixing our shoulder. And you're way more worth it than the bike is, because without your body, you're not going to experience that anyway. Yeah. It's the single most valuable asset that you will ever, ever, ever own. Your house doesn't matter.
Don't wait until you're so far gone before you reel it back in, because you'll miss it.
And the point at which you live with this pain, you don't realise how debilitating it is and how exhausting it is to live with pain on a daily basis for an amount of time until you're not there anymore and you're freed from it.
Seriously, the shoulder for, I think it's been a month now.
Yeah.
It would just creep up on me, and the amount of sleep I've needed just randomly through the day, because just the pain is just exhausting.
Yeah, it will be.
And I've gone through a few situations like that, to the point where I did start yoga and implementing those things a few years ago because of my back, and the difference that made, and it's committing to it and realising that you need that scheduled time, that hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it might be, makes such a difference in how you do everything.
You know, it's and I think for a lot of people, and I find, again, you know, it's anecdotal, it's not based on any science, but so many people are reluctant to do that, to take that time out to do their yoga or do their stretching or go for a massage or whatever it is that makes them feel good, because they feel guilty about that. And I can't tell you how many people, I've had this problem for years, and I've got 2 kids, and, you know, and I've just got to get it. I'm like, when an aeroplane's crashing,
they tell you to
put your own oxygen mask on before you try and help anyone else, because you are no use to anyone if you're scrabbling out on the floor.
All the time.
Exactly.
She says it to me all the time.
You've got your kids. What use are you going to be if you're on the floor gasping for breath?
There was one more that I heard of, which was, what did it say? It said something like, you refuse to do the workouts and the meditation that you need.
Yeah.
Because your life's too hectic. When if you did the workout and the meditation, your life wouldn't be that hectic anyway.
100%.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed having you here, and I'm
Thank you.
Over the moon with what you've shared. I think it's been one of the most informative we've had, where directed people, and totally worth the hassle getting you on.
I still think you should get Dale on.
Yes, I think we're going to have to now, because you've talked about him so much. They're going to need to see Dale.
The man, the myth, and the legend.
We'll organise that. Maybe have you both on. But thank you again so much.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
Guys, I'm going to put all of Vanda's details at the bottom, the books, whatever. I'll get it all off her. If you want to have a look into her business, all the many facilities that her and Dale do, I'll make sure that's available to you as well. Drop her a follow. She's super lovely to talk to, so also drop her a message. And yeah, thank you so much. And like, share and subscribe if you enjoyed this. And we look forward to having you guys on the next one. Bye.